Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast. This is not live, in case you were wondering. That's why you might not have seen that I am live, because I am recording this a day in advance, because I am going to see Bert Kreischer, and it's happening right now. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. So any big news that happened between Wednesday night and right now, you won't see on here, and I apologize for that. But I have a preview of UFC 297, Sean Strickland versus, who's he fighting again? Oh, Dricus du Plessis. And then we have a second title fight. That's for the middleweight title. And we have a second title fight. Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Benasilva. So that is for the women's vacant bantamweight championship. So we got two title fights coming up on Saturday. So yeah, we are going to be going through all of that. And yeah, just talking about those fights, because that's really the biggest thing. We had a few fight announcements happen over the week. But other than that, nothing too crazy, no big news. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do a watch party. So be on the lookout for that. I'll go into detail a little more on that when we get to UFC 297. But I just remembered I forgot something. That's okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. Maybe I'll throw it in on the fly. But for now, that's what we got going on. And let's just get into the combat sports news, because I want to go ahead and just keep this flowing. It's weird when I'm not live, because I'm usually looking for viewers and comments and stuff like that. But hey, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and make any comments you want. I will respond as I see them. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're here. That way, and hit that notification bell, because that'll tell you when I go live and also when I release pre-recorded stuff like this. And then my social media is going on down there in just a second. It'll pop right back up. But it'll be going on at the bottom of the screen. There it is. In different locations throughout the time. So go check out my social media as well. Going Rounds Podcast everywhere except for X. It's Going Rounds Pod. You can, see me basically just reposting all the news. If you don't want to try to find everything everywhere, I usually keep up with all the news, all the breaking stuff, everything, as much as I possibly can. So go check it out, all my social media. And as far as that goes, I think that's it for an intro. You'll see the time behind me right there. It's always there. But that's how you know this is pre-recorded, so don't get it twisted. And thanks for the support and checking out this video. Don't forget to share with somebody, and let's get into it. Combat sports news. Let's start with some PFL/Bellator news. So if you've been following along or been watching the show or been paying attention at all, you know that PFL has absorbed Bellator, all of its roster that is available, and they are now part of the PFL organization. So that's what is happening with that. Basically, they just took over Bellator, and now they are going to have PFL versus Bellator champs fighting each other, which is not a bad idea, actually, because what else are you going to do, right? What are you going to do with all these champions you got from Bellator? Some of the bigger names, Ryan Bader, Patricio Pitbull, Johnny Eblen, all these guys. What are you going to do with them? You can't just strip them of titles that they had, because their organization just couldn't keep up. So yeah, they brought him in, and now they're going to fight him champion versus champion and, integrate everything, I guess. So this is their first step towards doing that. So they're having an official press conference Wednesday, January 24th at 2 p.m., it looks like. That might be Eastern time. I'm not sure, but they're gonna have an official press conference with the announcement of all this. And I mean, they've pretty much already put the fight card out there, but a couple things to keep in mind, because PFL has different rules than most of the big MMA organizations. They didn't have like elbows and I don't know, little weird stuff. But what's on the line with this event is going to be, of course, new super fight championship belts, promotional bragging rights. They're going to be able to say, hey, Bellator came in, they're better than PFL, blah, blah, blah. Either way, they're all under the same banner now. So, I mean, who really gives a shit, right? I guess. I mean, it's a cool idea, like I said. Not a bad idea to do all this, and a good way to integrate everything. But promotional bragging rights, I mean, come on. Bellator is not even a promotion anymore. They're keeping the name around for like a year, they said. But we all know what's going on here. So promotional bragging rights, not that big of a deal. That's just something that they could add in there. So, but the rules, all bouts, 3 5-minute rounds. Elbows are allowed because previously, I guess in PFL, because Bellator was just like UFC, as far as I know. I never knew of anything else being different. So PFL is the one with the different rules. I assume they're the ones that didn't have the elbows, so now elbows are allowed. And that's really all you need to know about that, except for the matchups. And here we go. At the top of the card there, you have a heavyweight title fight between Renan Fajeda versus Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader being from Bellator, Fajeda being the PFL champ. Impa Kasangane, the PFL champ there from this past season. At middleweight versus Johnny Eblen. That should be a banger because Impa's been doing some big things over at the PFL, and Johnny Eblen just seems fucking unstoppable. He's a star, and Bellator, not being able to keep things going, PFL absorbed their stars, and Johnny Eblen's definitely at the top of the bill for that. So he's going up against Impa Kasangane for that middleweight title. You got Magomed Kiramov for PFL versus Jason Jackson for Bellator. That's at welterweight. Featherweight, you have Jesus Pinedo for PFL versus Patricio Pitbull for Bellator. And those are the title fights. Then you have Vadim Nemkov going up to heavyweight for Bellator versus Bruno Capoloza for PFL. Thiago Maheta Santos, who is a former UFC fighter, versus another former UFC fighter, Yoel Romero. Santos is from PFL, and Yoel Romero is from Bellator. And you got Clay Collard, PFL, versus AJ McKee, Bellator. Those are all some pretty goddamn good fights, if you ask me. If you don't know both of those opponents on each side of that, at the top of that, card, then you at least know one of them. I guarantee that. If you follow MMA, yeah, you do. And if you don't, look them up. You'll find out right away who these guys are. But those are a lot of pretty big matchups. The early card, Aaron Pico versus Gabriel Braga. Biagio Ali Walsh, who's the grandson of Muhammad Ali, versus Chris Morris. Kelsey DeSantis versus Clarissa Shields, the GOAT of women's boxing, back in MMA, fighting in PFL. Let's see, the last two, not very big names, don't know them real well, but I mean, shit. Besides those last two fights, basically, you got a name everywhere, a notable, recognizable name in every single one of those matchups. So PFL's doing big things, man. They get that roster from Bellator. They get all those former UFC fighters to add to the list of former UFC fighters they already have, and they're doing big things with it. It's a good thing. I mean, it's not that great for the sport that there's no longer that number 2 spot taken by another promotion. Now it's absorbed into one with PFL, but if they put together big events, they follow through with the production, they follow through with this event being really good overall, and these fights follow through, I mean, shit, they got something good on their hands here. So I'll be excited to watch this one. It is a pay-per-view. I might actually have to buy this one. I don't usually buy anything other than UFC pay-per-views because those are fucking expensive enough, and they happen so often that I can't justify buying other pay-per-views. But I guess we'll see what the price point is for this one, and I might have to just buy it. That's happening Saturday, February 24th. So be on the lookout for that. I'm sure there'll be big news between then and now. But yeah, that's it. PFL versus Bellator, the champs. Pretty big card. Check it out. Speaking of a big card, UFC 300, there has been a couple more announcements to top off that card and make it more exciting even. Jim Miller, who we'll speak about here soon because he had a big win this past weekend at UFC Fight Night, Vegas. And yeah, he's going to be fighting on UFC 300 as promised. He talked about it. He fought on UFC 100, fought on UFC 200. Now he'll be fighting UFC 300 as long as nothing happens between now and then, because that's always a possibility. But that's a pretty exciting fight against Bobby Green. Damn. Bobby Green is one of those guys that goes back and forth whether, he's doing great or kind of dropping fights he shouldn't be dropping. So, he's not at the upper echelon of the fighters in that division, but Jim Miller is trying to make his way back into the top 15. And Bobby Green, I believe, is ranked like 14th or 15th, something like that. So that's a tough fight, though. Bobby Green with those heavy hands. He's a good all-around fighter, but Jim Miller's a dog, and you can't stop this guy. It's impressive what he's been doing and how he's been carrying himself. So as far as that goes, that should be a good one. And also, the BMF title being put up again, being defended by Justin Gaethje, the newest BMF title holder, number 2 in history to have the BMF title. Jorge Masvidal being the first one, and now he's putting it up for grabs and trying to defend it against Max Holloway. That's a hell of a fight right there. That's a banger. Max Holloway being one of the best boxers in the UFC overall. I mean, if you remember that fight against, was it Kelvin Cater, or where he just stopped in the middle and was like, I'm the best boxer in the UFC. Turns around, crack, 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 throws a fucking dope combo. I mean, he's a badass. I mean, if you don't know Max Holloway, you better recognize. But Justin Gaethje, the highlight, he's a fucking badass too, obviously. He's the BMF right now, baddest motherfucker. He's got the belt, and he beat Dustin Poirier, something a lot of people can't do in the fashion that he did, and knocked him out. So Justin Gaethje's a badass, and Arizona boy at that. So that should be an exciting ass fight. I love both those guys, so I will just be there to see the fight. I have no dog in that game. I like them both, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. So that adds to the excitement of UFC 300, and we'll see. I don't think they're done yet. I think they might have one more big thing up their sleeve, but we'll have to wait and see. Still got some time. It's happening in April. So Saturday, April 13th is UFC 300. Should be a big ass event. I can't wait. I don't want April to come that fast. The year's already going by too quick, but I'm excited for that one. So when it gets here, yes, everyone will be going nuts as well as me. So that's it for combat sports news, though. Like I said, not a whole lot going on. Nothing of notable value at the moment. So let's get into the recap of UFC Vegas 84. Happened at the Apex in Vegas. Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker for the first fight card of 2024 for the UFC. And this was a rematch because the first fight wound up a no contest due to an illegal knee on the ground by Ankalaev, and Johnny Walker wasn't deemed fit to continue by the doctors. So they called it oddly enough, they called it a no contest, which I thought was kind of strange. I would have guessed that would have been a That would have been a DQ, disqualification. Can't remember. I need a drink. Maybe that'll get my mind going a little. But they had their rematch, and let's check out what happened at the lower portion of the card in the earlier fights. Some TKOs to start off the card. Three in a row, actually. Joshua Van gets a TKO win in the flyweight division over Felipe Bunez in the second round. Nicholas Mota gets a win in the lightweight division over Tom Nolan by TKO in the first round. And then John Silva gets a win in the featherweight division over Weston Wilson by TKO in the first round as well. Big spinning wheel kick and punches TKO win for Marcus McGee in the bantamweight division over Gaston Bolanos. That happened in the third round. That was a pretty exciting one. And then you had Preston Parsons with a unanimous decision win over Matthew Semmelsberger, and that rounds out the undercard. Then we get into the main card of the night, and because of the Manel Kopp and Manel Kopp versus whoever the fuck he was going to fight, I can't remember. That fight got canceled. So a couple fights got moved up, and Andrei Arlovsky versus Waldo Cortez Acosta got moved up from the featured bout in the prelim card to the first bout in the main card. And this was, Arlovsky fighting for like the 40th time or some shit like that in the UFC. But unfortunately, he lost a unanimous decision to Waldo Cortez Acosta in the heavyweight division. And it wasn't a great night for Andrei Arlovsky. This is just kind of the way that his career's been going. That marks his third loss in a row in the UFC, which is always a bad thing. He hasn't won since, it was 2022 when he won April. So, it's been almost 2 years. So he's had 3 losses in a row, including this one. So that's something to look out for. Hopefully, maybe they give him one more chance to get back in the win column and, keep that UFC career going. Either way, I don't think Arlovsky will be done yet. I'm sure he's got a few more years in him. He's not the type of guy to just end it all abruptly. I see a few more fights in his future, even though he hasn't been really winning much as of late. The big thing about it is, he's got one decision, which was this loss. His last loss was a TKO, and the one before that was a submission. So kind of been losing every which way. So that sucks too, but at least it hasn't been brutal fucking KOs for 3 losses in a row. That would suck. But moving on, Bruno Ferreira versus Phil Haas. This was a pretty exciting fight. Bruno Ferreira came out with the fury. Phil Haas just does not know how to take a punch whatsoever. This poor guy gets just KO'd left and right. This marks the 3rd loss in a row for him, all by KO in the first round. So if he gets a chance to fight again in the UFC, you should probably go ahead and put in a prop bet of, losing by KO in the first round. And I'm pretty sure you're going to make some money off that because Phil Haas does not know how to get out of the first round and does not know how to no defense. I don't know what's happening with him, but he can't take a punch whatsoever. I feel like he needs to take a step back and really look at his career because it's not going well for him. The last time he won was in 2022 as well, but before that he had a KO loss as well. So in his last 5 fights, he is 1-4, all of his losses being by KO in the first round. That's insane. And that's really, really tough to deal with. And I don't even know if he'll get another chance in the UFC. So Bruno Ferreira with the big win in the first round by KO over Phil Haas. Moving on to the next fight. I did yeah, there's that finishing punch. I mean, if that kick wasn't enough, Fajeda got this big punch on him, and that's what dropped Haas, finished him off from there. But moving on to the next fight, Mario Bautista versus Ricky Simón. This one I thought was going to be, I mean, it was a pretty good fight overall, you know, action all the way through. Ricky Simón is always involved in a action-packed fight, an exciting fight, but unfortunately came up with the short end of the stick this time. Unanimous decision loss in the third round. Bautista just got the best of him in this one. Simón just couldn't pull it off. And that makes that's Ricky Simón's second loss in a row. His last one being against Song Yadong back in April of last year. That was a TKO loss in the fifth round. So, I mean, this was a unanimous decision loss. Not as bad, but that marks his second loss in a row. So he needs to turn things around there. But Bautista, I believe, is undefeated in the UFC. Yes. And that, oh no, he's not. I'm sorry. He's got 2 losses. But that was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's his 6th win in a row. So he is on a big win streak. A lot of decision wins, but he's got like 3 submission wins mixed in there too. So, I mean, he's a pretty exciting fighter, doing big things. We'll see what's next for him. Moving on to the living legend, Jim Miller, in his, I believe, was like his 43rd or 44th fight in the UFC. Fucking crazy. So many fights for Jim Miller. And, you know, he still looks as good as he did back in the day. You know, he had that real bad spout of losses due to the Lyme disease and him acclimating to all that. But now back in just getting win after win after win. This was a submission in the third round over Gabriel Benitez. That marks the second win in a row for Jim Miller. His last one being against Jesse Butler by KO in the first round. So 2 wins in a row for him. Gabriel Benitez, he put up a good fight, you know. I mean, it wasn't like completely lopsided, but you know, Jim Miller just looking like a fucking beast. And yeah, that's I'm sorry, Benitez was coming off a win, so now he's got to fight back to get back in the win column there. But yeah, once again, Jim Miller looking like a badass with these punches. And oh, what happened here? Okay, anyway, yeah, just I mean, Jim Miller always gets touched too, as you can see there in his eyes. You know, he got hit, gets bloodied up a little bit, but no matter what happens, he always winds up coming out with that win, or at least putting up a great fight. And yeah, he eventually gets the sub here and gets that win over Gabriel Benitez in the third round by face crank. So it wasn't a rear naked, it was a face crank, which there's been a lot of those people been taking advantage. If they can't get that arm under the chin, they're cranking on that face, and you know, that'll submit somebody almost as quickly as that rear naked, because you know, you can break somebody's jaw putting all that pressure on their chin. And yeah, those face cranks, they're getting finishes these days. So there's that. Moving on to the main event, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. And Ankalaev gets a KO win in the second round over Johnny Walker. I mean, it was a pretty decent fight, but Walker just was not looking great. Got pieced up. Ankalaev was he was on top of his game and was not letting Walker get away with what he normally gets away with. And you know, about mid-round in the second round, drops Johnny, follows up with this nasty uppercut as he's, you know, back against the cage. And then unfortunately for Walker, just gets put out, and it was nasty. So Magomed comes back after a draw and a no contest, finally gets back in the win column. Johnny Walker, you know, had that no contest against Ankalaev last, and Before that, he was on a 3-fight win streak against Ian Cutelaba, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith. So he had a pretty damn good win streak going there against big opponents. And then the no contest happened, and now he gets a bad loss by KO against Ankalaev. So we'll see what happens with Johnny. He was, trying to make his way up there and back into contention. And, he's always one of those guys that has his name in the mix. But, yeah, this sets him back quite a bit. Ankalaev is, back in the mix, ready to, contend for a title, hopefully soon for him. But, yeah, that's a hell of a way to come back after that just shitty fight last time with the no contest, the illegal knee and all that. I kind of like Johnny Walker a little more than Ankalaev, so I was rooting for Johnny, but man, he took a L on this one, and it sucks to see him go down and go out like that. But that is something that happens with Johnny. But Ankalaev just looked like a beast, and I mean he came out of that with the big KO win, and that's kind of what he needed to get back on track. So good for him on that, and that wraps it up for the first fight card of 2024 for the UFC. Unfortunately happened in the Apex. I don't know how long they're going to keep that going, but it is what it is. I know I talk about that all the time. I just think it's fucking annoying that they keep fighting there. But what can you do? So now we get to UFC 297, and I feel like I'm going fast, and I'm not really rushing it. It's just, there wasn't anything crazy big that happened in this past fight card. But I am excited for UFC 297. It's not the best card, especially with all the bangers that are coming up. I mean, 299 is almost better than 300 at this point. And 298's not half bad as well. That's next month. Ilya Topuria versus Volkanovski. And I mean, that one's just looking like a damn good card as well, if I remember correctly. They're just stacking the beginning of the year here, so I don't know what they're gonna do with the I don't know what they're gonna do with the rest of the year, especially with the upcoming months after like UFC 300 and stuff. Man, I don't know, but I mean UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Topuria, Whitaker versus Costa, Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary, Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo, and Anthony Hernandez versus Ikram Aliskerov. That's the main card. That's a fucking hell of a card. Let's see what they got in the prelim. Tatiana Suarez, unfortunately, is out of her fight against Amanda Lemos. That's one of the other things that happened this week. Injury plagues again. Man, I feel bad for Tatiana Suarez. She is always getting injured. I don't know why. I know she battled cancer back when she was younger. Lots of knee injuries, back injuries, all that shit. But once again, injured. And unfortunately, they wouldn't push her fight back. I guess she needed just some extra time to recover from the injuries, and it wasn't able to happen. So Mackenzie Dern has taken her spot against Amanda Lemos in the prelim card of UFC 298. The only other fight they have listed at the moment is Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus Justin Tafa. I don't know why I got into talking about this card already, but just because I know it was going to be a good one. And then that leads up to 299, which we went over last week. Fucking hell of a card. Holy shit. So 297 is barely an appetizer, barely. We'll call it more of an hors d'oeuvre to what's coming up, because I think 298 is the appetizer, 299 is the main course, and 300 is gonna just be that sweet dessert at the end. That was corny. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I don't know, if you think of the lead up though, you know what I'm saying? Think of the lead up, that sweet you see that flash? You see that flash that just happened. I hate pointing it out, but I have to point it out. And the reason why I'm pointing it out this time, not only because I just can't help myself, but I'm getting a new camera. It should be in tomorrow. No, Friday. Today's Wednesday. Nope. Today's Thursday. No, I'm recording Wednesday. We know. I'm not going to play that game. But yes, I am getting a new camera. Fuck this camera and that flashing. I hope that's the problem. This camera's old. I love it. I shouldn't even talk shit. It's been good to me. I'm lucky that it's worked for this long, especially when I had no idea I could even use it the way I'm using it. But I have a newer camera coming. Same camera DJ Tommy uses in the Technically Unsound podcast. So that's good because he knows what's up with the cameras. He has all the good shit, and yeah, I'm getting one of the same cameras that he has. He has multiple, but yeah. So hopefully that flash will stop happening, and I will be able to stop talking about it because it just bugs me so much when it happens. I can't even ignore it. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. UFC 297, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland for the middleweight championship. And Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Buena Silva for the women's bantamweight championship. 2 titles on the line. What do we got for the undercard? This is why I say that this card is happening in Toronto, Canada. That's why I'm saying that this one's not the best of cards overall, but it's got some pretty decent fights at the bottom. Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick in a flyweight bout to start off that prelim card. Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Priscilla Cachueta. That should be a pretty damn good fight in the women's flyweight division. Jillian Robertson, who's always fun to watch, against Polyana Viana, also a fun fighter to watch in the women's strawweight division. Charles Air Jourdain versus Sean Woodson in the featherweight division. Brad Katona, 2-time Ultimate Fighter winner, versus Garrett Armfield in the men's bantamweight division. Then we get to the main card, and it starts off pretty damn good. Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. Arnold Allen has been on a tear until he lost. I always do that because I remember all the good fights, and then he's coming off his last fight being a loss, which is fine though. He's 29 years old, got a 19-2 record overall, UFC record of 10-1. His only loss being the last fight he was in. He was in a 10-0 before. That's what I was remembering. But his last loss, I mean, no joke. He fought Max Holloway. Yeah, that's right, Max. So, I mean, come on. His first loss in the UFC is against Max Holloway, of course, right? You fight Max Holloway. Unless you're Volkanovski, I mean, you're going to lose. That's just how it's been fighting Max anytime recently. But Arnold Allen has 7 KO wins, hasn't lost by KO or TKO. 4 submission wins as well as no submission losses, and he's 9-2 in decisions. So a lot of decision wins for him, but you got that undefeated record when it comes to KO, TKO, and submissions. So Arnold Allen, great fighter. An exciting fighter, and you know, after that 10-0 streak, we'll see how he handles his first loss in the UFC, and let's see how he bounces back against Movsar Evloev, also 29 years old. He's 17-0, undefeated, 7-0 in the UFC, 3 KO wins, 4 submission wins, and 10 decision wins. So with that, I mean, being undefeated, he's got more decision wins than KO, TKOs, or submissions, but, I mean, he's a pretty exciting fighter as well. So this should be a damn good fight, if you ask me, to start off the card. He's on a 7-fight win streak, obviously, because he's 7-0 in the UFC. So that's going to be tough for Arnold Allen, you know, up against a guy with the pressure on his shoulders, though, with that undefeated record. Most guys, you know, take that to the heart, and you know, you got Arnold Allen with the big strikes trying to end that undefeated record for Movsar Evloev. But he does, like I said, have that pressure on his shoulders with that undefeated record. But he's beaten good opponents before, like Diego Lopez, who's a big up-and-comer. I believe that might have been, that was his last fight, and that was a decision win. His past 1, 2, 3, 4, all of his wins in the UFC have been by decision. So if you're looking to bet on something, that might be your best bet. Evloev by decision, or just that the fight will go the distance, because that's how he wins. And he is the undefeated fighter right now. Arnold Allen, his loss to Max was by decision. Before that, though, he had a couple TKO wins in a row. And then 4 4 decisions in a row before that. So having the fight go the distance might be the way to go if you're betting. I'm going to say I'm rooting for Arnold Allen in this one. I do like Allen a bit more than, and I wouldn't say more. I just like Arnold Allen as a fighter, as a person. Evloev is just one of those guys who's got a great record. He's a great fighter, respect his skills. But when it comes to me picking right now, I'm going to go ahead and say, actually, I should look up the odds for this fight real quick before I go too much further. Let's see. UFC 297 odds. Let's see if I can find a quick one that I don't have to. Oh, perfect. Yeah, so this is something I wanted to do, and I wanted to prepare for this a little more, but I just couldn't seem to. I couldn't seem to come up with how I wanted to do it, and so I need to put a little more thought into it, which I will do. But obviously, with Evloev being undefeated, he is the minus 200 favorite over Arnold Allen, who is at plus 170. So not too big of a gap between those two. I would take the underdog in this one because Arnold Allen's probably going to be hungry to get back in that win column after that loss. He seems like the type of guy who will be able to bounce back in a good way and give Evloev a really good fight, if not be able to overcome and get the win. I would go, if I was betting on this one, I would probably go with the underdog, Arnold Allen. Probably good for a parlay or something. But yeah, let's move on to the next fight. Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. This should be a good one as well because Chris Curtis is a training partner of Sean Strickland, and probably his best friend. They got a podcast together, the most unlikely duo, if you know and have not talked to, but seen both of them in interviews and stuff like that. Chris Curtis is like a real calm, kind of laid back type of dude. And then you got Sean Strickland, who's intense, big mouth, talks shit left and right, says all kinds of controversial, crazy shit. And Chris Curtis is like his buddy on the side who pats him on the shoulder and goes, hey, maybe calm it down a little bit, maybe? No? Okay, fuck. I tried. They've gotten into it on Twitter as well. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird duo, but they have a podcast together. I never really listened to it, but I know they do one together. I don't know that I could take that much of Sean Strickland. He's grown on me a little bit, as I talked about before, but still not my favorite, So it is what it is. But check it out if you guys are interested in watching that podcast. Chris Curtis, who I often call Chad Curtis, and I don't know why. For some reason, I want to call him Chad. He doesn't even look like a Chad. It's weird. But Chris Curtis, 36 years old, 30-10 overall in MMA, 4-2-1 in the UFC, 17 wins by KO or TKO with 1 loss by the same, 1-1 in the submission for wins and losses, and in decisions he's 12-8. So lots of decisions for him, whether it be wins or losses. His last fight being a no contest. Let me see here. I don't remember what the reasoning for that no contest was, but I can find out real quick. That's a hell of a fight record though. 30-10. 40 overall fights. Oh, accidental clash of heads against Nasruddin Imavov. That was in June of 2023. So that was his last fight. Before that, though, he lost to Kelvin Gastelum. So it's like win-lose for him. He had a bunch of wins in a row to start off his UFC career. Three wins in a row, then had a loss, a win, a loss, and then the no contest. So 4-2-1. Like I said, yeah, Chris Curtis. And then you got Marc-Andre Barriault, and I screwed up his age there. That's cool. Somehow that second part got left off. Love it when I do that. But he's 33 years old, 16-6 overall in MMA, UFC record of 5-5-1, 10-1 in the KO TKO column, 1-1 in submissions and 5-4 in decisions. 10 KO TKO wins, the notable stat there. He's on a 2-fight win streak against Julian Marquez and Eric Anders. So, I mean, he's looking to extend that streak to a 3-fight win streak over Chris Curtis, but Chris Curtis is looking to bounce back into the win column after that no contest. Clash of heads, accidental, that always sucks. But, yeah, Curtis has some good heavy strikes. You know, he's a good overall fighter. I mean, like I said, he's a training partner of Sean Strickland, so he's got to put up with some punishment in training when it comes to Sean Strickland, because from the sounds of it, even when he's trying to hold back, he still hits hard. So hopefully he's learned some of that boxing skill from Sean, because yeah, it'd be good for him. And if he learns to kind of box a bit of the way that Sean does, he can be dangerous. But Marc-Andre Barrios, Canadian, big heavy hands as well. 10 KO wins, like I said. Only lost once by KO. His last win, though, was by decision over Eric Anders back in June. So lots of KO TKO wins, though. So this could be a banger. I like Chris Curtis a lot, but Marc-Andre Barrios is just a beast, and I just don't know that Chris Curtis has the skills to get past him. I might be wrong on this one, but let's see who the... Chris Curtis is actually the favorite. Holy shit. Maybe I should change... Maybe I should look at that before I say something. But you know what? I'll go with Chris Curtis. The guy who I thought was the underdog, I will stick with Chris Curtis. That was my initial intention, was to say Chris Curtis, but I thought for sure he was going to be the underdog, and I'm like, I'm not going to just go for all underdogs, but shit. You know what? I like Chris Curtis enough. I did see him and shake his hand at the UFC Fan Expo this past year when I went. He seemed like a cool dude. I stood and watched an interview of his and stuff. Seemed like a real down-to-earth guy. I like Marc-Andre Barrios, too. He's a really good fighter, and he's dangerous as fuck with those strikes. But, yeah, let's go with Chris Curtis. That's my pick for this fight. So, again, I'm gonna probably come up with some kind of... I think I was doing it for a little bit. I did it. I tried it, and I wasn't sure that I liked it. So, but I'm going to come up with some kind of graphic or something. Maybe after showing the visuals of, you know, a fight or two, them punching or something like I always do, I'll go back to the matchup visual and put an overlay of my pick. I'll do something like that, because I should be making picks of some sort, just to tell, you know, I'm over here talking about the fighters, but I'm not making any picks, and almost every show makes picks and stuff like that. I'm not going to really keep too much track. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start telling and stuff, see what kind of, maybe I can get a little better at making picks, and then I'll start gambling a little more and seeing if my picks will pay off. That's what it is. We'll do that for the new year. I'm going to get better at betting on fights. I'm going to try to put my knowledge to the test. I overthink things, but maybe that's going to add a good little, just add to the show a little bit by making actual picks and then putting my money where my mouth is and making those bets. So maybe if I start winning and stuff, I'll share slips here from, you know, DraftKings or something. That's who I usually bet with, is DraftKings. Maybe we get a sponsor out of it later or something. Who knows? If I get good at betting. I'll try to get some tips off of Clark. I'm not sure what his betting record is like, but he was definitely betting for a while there, quite a bit. So, yeah, let's move on to the next fight. This should be a damn good fight. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. Mike Malott's been on a tear. Neil Magny, you know, falling on a little bit of hard times with that loss against Ian Gary. Kind of an emotional fight for him, unfortunately, due to the Ian Gary shit talking. But yeah, he kind of got fucking worked in that fight, which is unfortunate, because I do like Neil Magny, but he's such a streaky fighter. 36 years old, 28-11 overall in MMA, 21-10 in the UFC. 7-2 wins to losses in the KO TKO column. 4-6, so he loses more than he wins by submission. So that's a damn shame for him. But for Mike Malott, if you look at that stat over on the other side, he's 6-0. He's got 6 submission wins and no losses by submission, as opposed to Neil Magny, who has the 4 submission wins and 6 submission losses. There's a stat you might want to keep track of if you're looking at betting as well. And then he's got a 17-3 record when it comes to decisions. That's a lot of decisions. That is one thing about Neil Magny, is a lot of his fights do go to decision, and that's rather unfortunate. But he got the last fight was a loss for him against Ian Gary, as I mentioned before. Before that, let's check, because I don't fully remember. Seems like Neil Magny's fought quite a bit. Oh, yeah, he had a win over Philip Rowe in June of 2023. Yeah, that's why he fought 3 times in 2023, and he was 1-2. So not a great record. Let's see how he starts off 2024 against Mike Malott, who's 32. He's 10-1 overall in MMA, 3-0 in the UFC, making his name quickly in the UFC with that undefeated record. 4-1 in the KO TKO column, 6-0 in submissions, no decision wins or losses, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. He does have 1 draw, but like I said, undefeated in the UFC, came in from Dana White's Contender Series back in 2021. And let's see. Yeah, lots of submission wins. So that might be a good bet there. I mean, Neil Magny has good striking. He's a good overall fighter, and this is against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. Big punch against him. And, he does have good striking, and he has good wrestling defense, and but unfortunately he loses a lot by submission. Almost all of his fights go to decision. There's a lot. I mean, Neil Magny, I want to say, is like a really great fighter, but he's just so streaky. It sucks. And if you look at the odds, Mike Malott, with his undefeated record in the UFC and 10-1 overall in MMA, I mean, he doesn't have nearly as many fights as Neil Magny, but he's dangerous right now, especially when he goes to the ground, whether he's got that ground and pound like shown here or those submission wins are a big thing for him. So Mike Malott is the minus 355 favorite over Neil Magny, plus 280. Now, don't count Neil Magny out completely. The problem is Mike Malott is the home field advantage guy right now. He's a Canadian, proper Mike Malott, fighting in Toronto, Canada. I don't know that he's from Toronto, but he's definitely a Canadian. So, he's got that home field advantage, and he's gonna have the crowd behind him. Is Neil Magny gonna feel a lot of pressure from that, or is he gonna feel a bit more relaxed and able to overcome all of that and, come back from that just not great loss against Ian Gary? I don't know. Mike Malott, I think, is maybe on the level of Ian Gary, maybe right under. So Neil Magny might have some issues here. Judging by those submission records of both of theirs and the trajectory that Neil Magny's been on lately, I would say Mike Malott's the safe bet. And as much as I like Neil Magny, I'm going to have to go ahead and pick Mike Malott for this one. So, it's unfortunate. I like Neil Magny a lot, but he's just not showing me what I need to see lately. So that's how I'm going to run with that one. Now let's get into the co-main event, Women's Bantamweight Championship for the vacant Bantamweight title. Because, of course, Amanda Nunes retired last year, and they have not fought to crown a new champion. So that's what this fight is. It should have been Juliana Pena versus Mayra Buenasilva, but Pena's hurt, and Buenasilva popped for in competition. Like, basically, she dropped dirty because she took Adderall, and that's a performance-enhancing drug, according to USADA. She's taking it because she always has. It's a prescription, but I guess she didn't she didn't tell USADA that she was taking it, and so she dropped dirty for it. And at least it wasn't a steroid or like a PED in the form that we're used to hearing. But I mean, people are still calling her a cheat and all this shit. Of course, Juliana Pena with her big fucking mouth is talking mad shit. What else is new? But I will say she has a bit of a point here. Raquel Pennington has fought for the title before and never won. And she's a very streaky fighter. And she just doesn't seem to shine under the bright lights when it means the most. So that's unfortunate. And Mayra Bueno Silva has been on a pretty big win streak. She's got 3 in a row. I mean, Pennington also, as you can see, is on a 5-fight win streak as well. Pennington's 35, 23-8 overall in MMA, 12-5 in the UFC. KO TKO wins and losses is 1-1. Submissions 4-1. 16 decision wins and 6 losses by decision. So a lot of decisions, but that's the women's division as a whole. That's just kind of what you get, unfortunately. The women don't. There's not a lot of big knockouts and submissions. I mean, there is a lot of exciting fights and the knockouts and submissions happen, but unfortunately, there is a lot of decisions. So, safe bet again. Oh, shit, I messed up on that one, too, 113. You know what? My phone was being stupid when I was making these, so I'm surprised I didn't make more. That's all right. It just means that I have to pay closer attention and proofread all these before I finish the graphic up and send it to my computer. But anyway, enough about my mistakes. Mayra Bueno Silva is 32 years old, 13-2 in MMA, 9-2-1-1 in the UFC. Wins and losses by KO or TKO is 11-2, submissions 4-0, and 13. Don't mind that 113. It's actually 13-3 decisions. So she's won a lot of decisions. And she's on a 3-fight win streak. So, yeah, lots of decisions, like I said. Oh, man, this one's tough. I mean, I would love to see Raquel Pennington get the win here. I'm not real big on Mayra Bueno Silva. Something about her bugs me. But Pennington, unfortunately, she just cannot put it all together and get the big win when needed. She fought Holly Holm and Jermaine Durand to me. No, she fought Nunes and Holly Holm for titles, I think. I don't remember how it went. I know she fought for the title at least once. She's lost against Holly Holm, Jermaine Durand to me, and Amanda Nunes, all former title holders. She lost against Holly Holm twice. Lost against Jessica Andrade as well, also a former champion. So, I mean, a lot of her losses are against the big names, but she is on a 5-fight win streak. Marion Renault, Penny Kanzat, Macy Chazon, Aspen Ladd, and Ketlin Vieira are those 5 wins. All except for one by decision as well. So there you go. That's what you're getting with Raquel Pennington. But she does have some pretty good striking. When she gets in a rhythm and gets in a groove, her striking can be dangerous. But she also has submissions as well. A lot. Just so many decisions, man. But yeah, she's got a lot of submission wins as well. So I mean, you can't count her out completely. You get to the ground, she could be dangerous there. This is a Ketlin Vieira, big punch against Ketlin Vieira, who was her last win, and that was by decision. So split decision though. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Raquel Pennington, she's just always been one of those fighters that you're like, oh yeah, she's definitely in line to fight for the title, and I could see her winning it, and then she drops it, or she drops the fight before she gets to the title. It's just tough. It's just tough. And that's just been my history, what I've known and I've seen from Raquel Pennington. It's unfortunate. I do like her overall as a person and a fighter, but she just can't put it together to get that big win and get the title. And I feel like if she does win this time, she's going to have to face Juliana Pena, and I'm not sure if she can overcome that if she can get past Mayra Bueno Silva. But I guess we'll have to see how that pans out. And her opponent, Mayra Buena Silva, is 10-2. Last uh last fight was a no contest, so technically, I mean, she was on a 3-fight win streak before that, which is why I wrote that. Her last fight was a no contest, overturned due to, her win was overturned due to the dropping dirty for the Adderall. That was against Holly Holm though, so that was a big win for her before it got overturned. And then before that, she beat Lena Landsberg, Stephanie Egger, and Wu Yanan. Those were her last 3 wins. 2 by submission, 1 by decision. Now, I'll say this. Raquel Pennington's fighting the big names. Mayra Buena Silva, besides Holly Holm, has not really fought big names. She lost to Manon Furo, had a draw with Montana De La Rosa, and lost to Marina Moroz. She beat Jillian Robertson. But that's it. I mean, the strength of schedule is more on the side of Raquel Pennington, unfortunately for Buena Silva. But, Pennington, like I said, she can get through those big names, and then she gets to the title and chokes. Karma, speaking of choking. But, yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what Raquel Pennington has to offer in this one. But Buena Silva, she has striking, she has submissions. She's the one kind of on a roll here with the wins and the hype and all that. Raquel's won more in a row without that no contest in the mix. You never know how Buena Silva's gonna bounce back from that that win being overturned, but for her, she felt like she didn't do anything wrong anyway, so it is what it is. Mayra Buena Silva is definitely the favorite, but not by much. She's minus 170, and Raquel Pennington is plus 145 underdog. You know what? I'm going to be biased on this one, even though everything I just said, I'm going to go underdog on this one, and I'm going to say Raquel Pennington pulls out the win. It's close in the odds anyway. Not like damn near a pick 'em, but it's close. And I could, maybe this is Raquel Pennington's time. I feel like if she doesn't do it now, she's not going to be able to do it at all. So, do or die here with her back against the wall. I'm going to say Raquel Pennington gets the win. I'm going to put my faith in her this time. So my pick is Raquel Pennington for the underdog against Mayra Buena Silva to win the vacant bantamweight championship. I don't think she's going to be able to hold it very long, even if she does win. But I will say Raquel gets the win here. Moving on to the main event. Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. This one should be damn good because we saw what Sean Strickland did against Israel Adesanya to get that belt and become the champ. But you never know how they're going to bounce back, what the bright lights are going to do to you when you have the pressure of being the champion and defending your title for the first time. A lot of people choke on that first defense. And on top of all that, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Sean Strickland, a lot of emotions, a lot of extra attention than he's used to, and attention in a different manner. So sometimes that can get to a fighter and really mess with their head. Sean Strickland seems like the type to possibly let that affect him, but most of the time it seems like nothing. He doesn't really give a shit about anything. But we've seen a different side of him lately, and who knows? Maybe being in the spotlight has helped him bring that out, but that might not always be a good thing. So then you got Dricus du Plessis, who looked like he struggled all the time because he had the deviated septum, the problem with his breathing. Looked like he gets gas all the time, even though he's getting wins. But he gets the surgery, comes out and looks like a fucking world beater against Robert Whittaker in his last fight. So, is he going to be able to overcome that awkward kind of fight style that Sean Strickland holds with the Philly shell, with the shoulder roll, the stabbing kicks? Like, is that going to be something he can defend against? Is that something that's going to throw him off? That's the question here. But Sean Strickland, at the age of 32, is the newly crowned middleweight champion of the UFC, undisputed. His MMA record is 28-5. UFC record 20-5. KO TKOs is 11-2. Submissions 4-0. Decisions, wins and losses is 13-3. So it's a lot of decisions for him. But 4 submission wins, hasn't lost by submission. So that's pretty good on his 11 KO TKO wins. Pretty damn good for Strickland. He's got that one big loss against Alex Pereira that he still talks about, actually. So, yeah, Sean, surprising win against Israel Adesanya. Upsetting win for me. But like I said, Sean's grown on me a little bit here and there. But his opponent, Dricus du Plessis, age 30, MMA record 20-2, 6-0 in the UFC. He's got the undefeated record on his shoulders. That's another pressure that, weighs heavy on some fighters, especially coming into a championship bout. Not only do you have the pressure of keeping that undefeated record, but also wanting to come out with the championship, with the belt. I mean, trying to get the belt is pressure enough, much less having that in the back of your head that you're undefeated. He's 9-1 with KO TKOs, wins and losses. 10-1 in the submission category and 1-0 in decisions. He's on a 6-fight win streak right now, as opposed to Sean Strickland, who's on a 3-fight win streak since he got knocked out by Alex Pereira. So yeah, this is tough. I mean, Dricus has 10 wins by submission, as opposed to Sean's 4, and then Sean's got way more KO wins. I mean, not way more. He's got 2 more KO TKO wins, as opposed to Dricus, who has 9-1 or 9 wins. So undefeated in the UFC though, and only 6 fights, and he's already fighting for a championship. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, Sean Strickland, man, that performance against Israel Adesanya is undeniably one of his best obviously the best performance of his overall, and something that a lot of people didn't expect, especially since, Adesanya is just like a living legend right now with the way that he has handled being a champion and how active he's been. But he just couldn't hold up against I think that knockout of the whole series with Pereira just fucked with him, I think, a little bit. And I think he really needed a break, so I'm hoping that this break that he's on right now is going to do him good. But Sean, like I said, on a 3-fight win streak against he lost against Jared Cannonier after Alex Pereira. So he had 2 losses in a row to end up 2022. So to start 2023, he got a win against Nasruddin Imavov, Abus Magomedov, and then Israel Adesanya to become the champ. So, I mean, if you would have asked me at this time last year if that Sean Strickland would be the champ at this time next year, I would have been like, you're fucking crazy. Coming off 2 losses in a row, it's nuts. And then he gets 3 in a row and winds up getting the championship. Like, it's crazy, especially in a dominant way that he did. So, I mean, Strickland has that boxing. He uses that Philly shell and the shoulder roll for defense. It's pretty unorthodox and just awkward for people to get the hang of. As you could tell with Adesanya, just couldn't find his rhythm, couldn't find an opening to get at Sean. So Strickland's got that going for him. The striking, the defense, and everything else. He's never been submitted. So even though Dricus has a lot of submissions on his record, nobody's ever submitted Sean Strickland. So maybe that's something to look out for here. Dricus has good striking as well, though. He put that on display against Robert Whittaker. Caught Robert quite a bit. Fucking, man, I was like so upset watching Robert Whittaker lose against him back in July. That was I mean, that was a big fight, and I was looking to see Robert try to get back in the win column, get a big win under his belt against a good name like Dricus, and then back in contention. But that didn't happen. And Dricus is beating some good opponents. I mean, he's 6-0 in the UFC, like I said. Marcus Perez, Trevin Giles, Brad Tavares. It slowly progresses higher and higher. Darren Till, Derek Brunson, and then Robert Whitaker. So, I mean, those are some pretty good opponents. TKO, TKO, submission, decision, KO, KO. I mean, he only has one decision win in there against Brad Tavares. The rest are KOs and TKOs and one submission. So, fuck, man. He's dangerous. He's on a roll, and he's got momentum, and he definitely has the skills, especially now with how he looked against Robert Whitaker. Like I said, after that surgery on his nose, his breathing's better, his cardio's better. Even when it wasn't good, he was still winning in big ways. So, he didn't look great against Derek Brunson, but still got the TKO win. Everyone was doubting him, and then he comes up against Robert Whitaker and looks like a whole new fighter. I don't want to say that I really like Dricus that much because of the shit that happened between him and Israel Adesanya as well. But I mean, I also don't like Sean Strickland that much. It is what it is. But I respect them both as fighters. I respect their talent. As for this one, it's looking like Sean Strickland is the favorite, minus 130, just barely though, because Dricus is a plus 110 underdog. Very, very close fight for good reason. They both have really good striking. And things can get interesting if it goes on the ground. My pick for this one, I don't think that Strickland is in a place to be stopped right now. I feel like he's riding a high that I think he knows how to handle, and he may not be conscious of the way that he's handling it or the fact that he's handling it well, I think. And as much as I don't like saying it, I don't think that Dricus has what it takes to beat him. But because I've seen Sean Strickland lose in the fashion that I've seen him lose, and the high that Dricus Du Plessis is riding right now, the way that he looked against Robert Whitaker, that I know I keep saying that, but that's the biggest kind of reasoning I have. The biggest, I don't even know what to say. I was trying to say something. It's at the tip of my tongue, but whatever. Those are the biggest reasons why is what he did against Robert Whitaker, who, is a badass as well, former champion, and the way that he dismantled him. It's hard to ignore that. So I could see him doing it to Sean Strickland. This is a toss up for me. I'm going to have to stick with the champ. I'm going to have to say Sean Strickland pulls it out. Even if it's a split decision win and it's close, I think Sean's going to pull it out. I don't know that Dricus has what it takes. I don't think he's at that level yet. I think he maybe needed one or two more fights before getting there. But if he does win, I wouldn't be mad, because if he wins, that sets up a possible fight with him and Israel Adesanya with their history. That would be fantastic as well. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I got. I'm going to go ahead and say Sean Strickland for the men's title fight, middleweight championship, women's bantamweight championship. Mayra Bueno Silva is my pick. Mike Malott over Neil Magny. I'm going to go with Chris Curtis over Marc-Andre Barrio. I will go with Arnold Allen over Movsar Evloev. So the only underdog I'm picking is Arnold Allen. It is what it is. Hopefully next week, next week, I will come up with something to add in visual-wise and whatnot. But that does it for the UFC 297 wrap-up. I think we did a little over an hour. I don't know. I was feeling it this time. I felt like I just went on and on and on and on and on. And that's okay. I think I hit the spots that I needed to hit. Be on the lookout. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go ahead and do a watch party for UFC 297. I believe my daughter Tren will be here, Tenet Tren. So, yeah, follow her everywhere. Tenet Tren. She's a gamer and a Twitch streamer. she's been up in her game lately. She's got new equipment. She's doing the damn thing. So I know she's got a lot of school and work in the mix, but she does still stream as she can. Go support her as much as you can. But I believe she will be here on Saturday, so maybe I'll get her to jump in here. Technically Unsound Podcast is always a go-to guest of mine on the watch parties. And then I will hit up Patrick and Clark always to see if they are interested as well. So might have some guests, might just wing it. Who knows? Be on the lookout. I'll put some stuff out on social media going on down there. Every time I go to point at it, it's not there. There it is. Going Rounds Pod on Twitter, or formerly known Twitter, now X. But Going Rounds Podcast everywhere else. I'm most active on Facebook. Has a lot of news that comes up. That's why I'm on Facebook quite a bit. And I'm also on Instagram quite a bit as well. And then I release funny videos and stuff like that on TikTok whenever I come up with some good content. So be on the lookout for all that. I will promote the watch party on Instagram and Facebook the most. So go follow me there and watch out for that. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Going Rounds Podcast YouTube channel right here. Every Thursday, 7 p.m. I go live. Sometimes I pre-record like this time. This was pre-recorded, so that's why the time looks a little off. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do know when I release videos, any of my other content, or go live. Don't forget to be on the lookout for that watch party during the main event of UFC 297. It'll be 8 p.m. Arizona time. Account for your time zone as you will. And don't forget to watch the Technically Unsound podcast as well, going live Sundays and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Arizona time on the Technically Unsound podcast YouTube channel. So go check that out as well. I'm out. Thanks for tuning in. Pre-recorded, like I said, but I had to release it. I'm going to watch Bert Kreischer. That's what I'm at. That's where I'm at right now. So hopefully it's a good show and worth it. I believe it will be. I'm a big Bert Kreischer fan. And I get to hang out with some friends and my daughter and stuff too, so it'll be cool. So I will give you an update on that and everything else either Saturday for the watch party or come back every Thursday. I'm out. I'm done rambling. Let me get my buttons in order here so I can hit the right one and be out. Have a good night. Enjoy the fights. Peace.